Welcome everyone to the second episode of Lads on Tour. It is Metal Gear Solid time. I am your host Hossein, and I am joined by Zach, or AKA Revolver asks a lot of questions.
It's just a box.
That is Jake, just a box Decker.
It's just a box.
Just a box. And of course, number one Hind D fan, Lucy James.
Oh, come on. Deserve.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a bit. But before that, Lads on Tour is a bi-weekly live show in which four friends, that's us, dig through their pile of shame and create a list to work through together. We play, watch, listen, read, eat, and any other form of consume.
I was going to say, play, watch, listen is a completely different podcast.
We experience everything on the list and then come together right here on twitch.tv/Lads on Tour crew to talk about our experiences. If you're watching live on twitch.tv/Lads on Tour crew, you can tell us what you think of the subject of this episode, which is, of course, Metal Gear Solid, and throw your questions our way and we'll do our best to answer them as best we can. If you aren't able to join live, don't worry about it. You can still check out the episode on youtube.com/Lads on Tour. There's no crew in that URL, but there is in twitter.com/Lads on Tour crew where you can follow us. Of course, we're also on podcast services, including iTunes and Spotify. And if you're listening there, please rate and review us. It really helps our little podcast and live show grow, and we'll turn it into something cooler and more ambitious as time goes on. So episode 1 of the show covered Fargo, the movie. So if you haven't checked that out, make sure you go to YouTube or the podcast services I mentioned earlier and check it out because it was lovely. This week, though, it's a big one. It is Metal Gear Solid, a game that is near and dear to many.
Let's fucking go.
Yes, and we have
game on the show too.
Yeah, first game. Lucy and Jake,
which is like surprising for like a bunch of capital G gamers. You know?
Exactly. So Lucy and Jake are playing it for the first time, which is exciting. If you're watching live and in the chat, let us know if you are playing it for the first time or if you played along to prepare for this, or what your experiences are with the game. And of course, as mentioned previously, just drop in your thoughts and feelings. And if you have any specific questions, we'll try and make note of those and come to them later. But we're going to kick off with some brief context and facts about the game. Metal Gear Solid is the fourth game in Konami's Metal Gear franchise. Did you know that?
I thought there was like one.
In my mind, it was the third.
I thought there were three.
Yeah.
There was Metal Gear,
obviously.
Metal Gear 2.
I knew about that one. I knew about that one.
And then in between, there was Snake's Revenge, which
that
was not created.
Kojima hates, right?
Yeah, it was not made. It was a quick follow-up to Metal Gear based on the success of Metal Gear. It was a quick cash-in, basically.
It was a quick buck.
Yeah, it is not loved, as I wrote in my notes here. So it was.
Have you played it?
A while back, yeah. It's not
Snake's
good.
Revenge you've played?
Yes.
So, okay, Tam and I are of an age that... Tam, you might remember this, but do you remember the original Metal Gear spread in Nintendo Power? The advertisement for Metal Gear, the original that was just like a bunch of weapons?
No, I'm not that old.
Okay, never mind.
Wow.
Also, I don't know why I said you and I are of an age, because you're like 4 years younger than me.
I played Metal Gear as a I'm doing my due diligence because I love Solid and I went back to the old games.
Oh, is it? Yeah,
many
years.
It's
like a bonus Jonas in one of the HD collections, right?
Yeah, so I played it on an emulator on the PC. So I did the dirty thing. I did dirtiness. I have never done anything illegal. Metal Gear Solid is the fourth game in Konami's Metal Gear franchise, preceded by Metal Gear, Snake's Revenge, and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. Snake's Revenge is not canonical and shunned by series creator and its fan base. It ain't good, baby. That's what I've written down.
Hang on.
Okay.
Labamba says Kojima once referred to Snake's Revenge as somewhat of a crappy game.
That sounds right. That sounds like something he would say.
That's an actual quote. Yeah.
Wow.
Metal Gear.
There's actually a lot of folks talking about their experience here in the chat just before we get started. Since we did ask if anybody was playing along with a serious business. What's up, Maria? She says that she did their homework. Vicariously through Lucy's streams this time, definitely the best Metal Gear experience.
Which I appreciate, but probably not the best way. It's the slowest way to experience that game.
Kata77 says they wish they could go back and play it for the first time. Emperor
Yeah.
OB says this is their first time experiencing Metal Gear Solid for myself. I have Lucy's stream similar to on their list of shame, was really fun.
Nice.
Kixit's here playing it for the first time and hasn't finished it yet. Of course, Jinpei is here talking about Johnny Sasaki pooping himself. I don't know if y'all know Jinpei. Jinpei is
Jinpei's
frequent
cool,
on my streams as well, and he's a real dirty bird. You know, he's out there saying the shit that everybody's thinking it, but Jinpei's always in the chat saying it, which I gotta give him credit where it's due. But
Metal Gear Solid Tactical Espionage Action was released on PlayStation 1 in 1998. Other games released in 1998 include Half-Life. 1998, a banner year for video games and the legacy of video games. Like it is, if you have to argue what year changed video games forever, it might be that year.
Yeah.
1998 also released Half-Life, Resident Evil 2, Zelda Ocarina of Time, Crash Bandicoot, Baldur's Gate, Grim Fandango, Thief, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, Xenogears, Pokemon Red, Blue, Marvel vs. Capcom. There's
Christ.
many other games that released that year. It was huge.
Yeah, big year.
Big year. Metal Gear Solid, directed by Hideo Kojima, written by Hideo Kojima and Tomokazu Fukushima, produced by Hideo Kojima and Motoyuki Yoshioka, my apologies. And then artist Yoji Shinkawa. Yoji Shinkawa, obviously you'll know as a frequent collaborator with Kojima and still with him at Kojima Productions. Metal Gear Solid was a huge commercial success, selling over 1 million copies in 1998 alone. Since then, it's sold many millions more, having been reissued with an integral version and been re-released on multiple platforms since. As it stands, the Metal Gear Solid franchise, which this game popularized, has topped 50 million copies sold. I replayed this game again and also watched it through Lucy's stream. I did it through, I used the same means as Lucy. We can talk about how you did it, Jake, and Zach as well. But we played the GOG version on PC. So the PC version, not this specific version, just the PC version overall, was released in 2000 and is currently the easiest way to play the game via GOG. However, it is not a good port.
Is it the easiest way?
I mean, it is like the most convenient way, to obtain. Yeah. If you woke up tomorrow and were like, I want to play Metal Gear Solid, the GOG version is the easiest way to do it. It was developed. The original PC port was developed by Digital Dialect and published by Microsoft, and it made a number of changes. It removed the Psycho Mantis memory card read moment, which sucks. That it was removed. The 140.07 frequency that had loads of written commentary from developers was removed. Meryl's alternate sneaking suit outfit was removed. The mission logs when you save, when loading a save file, were removed. But it did add the first person mode, which if you tap the first person button twice, it locks into the first person mode and you can play the entire game like that.
Whoa.
And it added quicker saves, which I guess is better, but it also, using that method, kind of cuts mailing out of the game, which is not good.
Yeah. The bright dot in the middle is you, Snake.
Yeah, the bright dot is in the middle of you, Snake, and I'll see you at the end of this game. That's pretty much how it goes. The GOG version itself is extremely finicky. If you tab out of the game, there's a decent chance that it will crash.
Did you?
That happened a couple times.
No. So it doesn't even have a windowed mode. I had to go in via the GOG settings and basically like force it to run in windowed mode, which is why I think it's so finicky.
Yeah,
it's very particular. Let's say.
And if you're streaming it, it has OBS has a lot of like pushback towards it, because it's just like the amount of times I've tabbed out and then tabbed back in, and it takes about 2 minutes for it to talk to each other again.
For folks that are interested in replaying it, like I would be honestly, like I would venture to say that the easiest way to play it is on the PlayStation Classic, because you can pick up a PlayStation Classic for like probably $15 now. They're dirt cheap. Metal Gear Solid is on there. You won't have analog functionality, which is kind of a bummer, but not necessarily like 100% necessary. And there's things
analog.
like there's few things like, you know, obviously the Psycho Mantis encounter is a little bit different because there's no memory cards and things like that. But like if you're willing to like if you're looking to replay it, especially, I think that PlayStation Classic is honestly probably the easiest way to go. And I also did want to address something like right out of the gate here. First time chatter, Zimba the monkey asks a really important question of us. When do we get to objectify Snake's thick ass booty?
Oh man, from the outset,
Oh,
like
it's
the first thing you
throughout.
do is the
Throughout.
man's got a wagon.
Boom.
Man's got a wagon. He is hauling ass.
Yeah, that's
let's
true.
just say.
But like, but I mean, if we're gonna have this discussion now, the thing that got me is that like the straps just were pushing his ass in. They weren't
It's like a
lifting
push-up
and
bra for your butt.
separating.
Yeah, it's
No,
a
no,
bra for your butt.
it was like I don't know, strapping him down. They
Yeah,
needed
you
to
know
go
why that is,
underneath
Lucy.
the cheeks to push him up.
You know exactly why that is. You've
So he
heard the
can-
TikTok. It's to stop his ass cheeks
Yeah.
clapping while he's running
Yeah.
around the
Yeah.
base.
Stealth mechanism. Yeah.
Yeah, it is part of the lore. Before we jump into the plot synopsis, I also want to point out that this has got a legendary voice cast. Like,
Yeah.
and it was legendary because this is a game that made many stars. Obviously David Hayter, director,
X-Men 2 writer.
played Guyver in the live-action Guyver bio-boosted armor movie.
Jennifer Hale.
Jennifer Hale, Commander Shepard. We've got where's my I also want to point out Akio Otsuka. If you're playing it in Japanese somehow, he's the voice of Snake in that, and he is also a legendary voice actor. He like way more than you probably know him from every anime that you've watched. Patrick Zimmerman as Revolver Ocelot. We've got Peter Lurie as Vulcan Raven. Some of these people went on to do a lot more work, and some of them just kind of were like, "All right, that's it. I'm gonna head out. I'm gonna head out." The voice cast for Metal Gear Solid 1 in both English and Japanese is incredible.
So I have a question for you. I mean, and Zach probably. I was doing some research after I finished this game. I was trying to figure out the difference between Twin Snakes, and one of the comments that I saw was the voice acting in Twin Snakes is so much worse. Did they use
awful.
different voice actors? Like, what happened? Why is that
Yes,
bad? Like,
so there were some. So they re-recorded a lot of it, and for me, I dislike Twin Snakes massively. I think it breaks the game because it puts it in the Metal Gear Solid 2 engine, which it like really screws up like the sight lines and a lot of the balance and design work that went into it.
It just makes like
is
the
screwed up.
Revolver Ocelot fight so easy because you can just pop into first person mode and just bang, 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 bang. Like,
Wait. What is Twin Snakes?
Twin
Snakes
Silicon
is
Knights developed in 2002 for the GameCube. It was one of the it's one of Nintendo's like exclusive deals with Silicon Knights after the Eternal Darkness, where essentially, what's the Silicon Knights guy's name?
Dennis Dyack.
Dennis Dyack was like, I want to remake this game with Kojima's blessing and put it on the GameCube. It's as if he remade it after seeing The Matrix and was like, what if we put a bunch of that shit in Metal Gear Solid?
Oh yeah, I saw some like bullet time shit.
Like, much bullet time stuff. There's like so much slow motion and like crazy over the top, like over the top action, and like it's a reimagining of the game that is bad. Like it doesn't do the game any favors. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, so I think not discussion, but the kind of history behind that was Kojima was like, if you're gonna remake this game, make it different, make it your own. And so there's that element of it, and a lot of the cutscenes and the action segments were done by Ryuhei Kitamura, who's a well-known, I believe, director or a film. He's a filmmaker in Japan and has done a bunch of movies, and that kind of style is the reason it's over the top and exaggerated. Like there's backflipping off of swords and missiles and weird.
Dude Baka nails it here in the chat. They say Snake jumps a missile. Like he just fucking jumps over a missile. It's
and
bad.
For me, like every moment of Metal Gear Solid 1 is so iconic that even the slightest change is like deeply upsetting to me. So I purchased Twin Snakes. I got Twin Snakes out of just I'm a Metal Gear fan, I need it, but I never have completed it, and I never will, and I will actively push people away from it because it's not it doesn't represent Metal Gear for what it should be,
right?
And the genus it is. Anyways, let's get into the plot synopsis, which I thought would be fun to have Jake and Lucy kind of figure out themselves. So I'm going to hand it off to Jake and Lucy. Jake and Lucy, what happened in Metal Gear Solid Tactical Espionage Action 1998 Hideo Kojima production?
Okay.
Lucy, why don't you start?
Oh, wow. Okay. So before the events of Metal Gear Solid, there's the events of... There's something happened in Zanzibar. Something went wrong. There was a guy whose name is Grey Fox, but also Cyborg Ninja. But hang on.
Yeah, you're getting too in the weeds.
Here we go.
Yeah, I'm getting too in the weeds.
Let's start with
Metal Gear Solid.
In Metal Gear Solid, okay, so basically, there are a group of terrorists who have these nuclear warheads it's a military base up in Alaska, but that's okay because Snake is a musher. He knows Alaska.
Like the only bit of story we get to from him is that.
Yes, I'm a musher. He gets sent up there to take it out quietly. He only has like a set number of hours in which to do it. There is also a giant nuclear deterrent device called Metal Gear that is there. He gets sent. He gets sent by Roy Campbell, who says that his niece Meryl is also there. There is an important doctor that Roland Emmerich that he has to get.
Roland Emmerich.
Yeah, that's the director.
Hal Emmerich.
There's an important doctor there, not doctor, but like an important scientist. So he has to go. There's also all of these, essentially like the baddies, the terrorists.
Cell. Yeah.
They're a terrorist cell that he has to go.
Well, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.
Right.
Wouldn't you say, brother?
God. So he goes, do you want me to try and do the whole thing?
No,
I think we sum it up. I think we sum it up with love does in fact bloom on the battlefield. That's the plot.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of but then you get to like the final third of the game where it gets to like
everyone's a double agent.
Double crossing on different names. Like, I mean, Grey Fox has at least 3 different names. Grey Fox, Cyborg, you're that ninja.
So his name is Frank Yeager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was known to Snake in Zanzibar as Grey Fox. And in this, he appears as a cyborg ninja. It makes perfect sense.
No, and that's the thing. It's like, it's hard to distill, but it does make sense in my brain. And especially like the double crossing stuff at the end, I was like, oh, yeah, because it's all like eked out so well throughout the course of the story.
How'd you like my sunglasses, brother?
That messed me up. However, so like that's the kind of broad strokes of the story. Oh yeah, and also Deep Throat is there too.
From the Watergate scandal?
That's right.
It's a lot. It's involved. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Jake, anything to add to that plot synopsis?
Absolutely not.
Before Jake jumps in here, I do want to point out that Zimbu the Monkey has called this segment Lale Lule Lore, which
that's actually taken from Kind of Funny's Lale Lule Lore.
Very good.
Which is a segment that Mike will do, which is very good though.
I will say though, I'm sure I don't know if you felt the same way. Lucy,
also, you two will not know what Lale Lule Lore means for a little while. Don't worry about it.
Lale Lule.
Yeah.
I will say it felt pretty damn good to finally cross this one off the list. Like I know that's the point of the show, but to have finally played Metal Gear Solid felt really good. Like this is a game that I've been hearing about ever since I've started playing games, and for one reason or another, I've never been able to. The first opportunity I had was Twin Snakes, but didn't get super into it. So to cross that off my never-ending list of games to play felt really good.
Dude, yeah. I did a video in 2014, which was like Metal Gear Solid in 2 minutes, and basically I worked on it with...
Wasn't it like 25 minutes though?
No. I did it in 2 parts, so it was in 4 minutes. But it was like my friend Alex Goy, who worked at Carfection at the time. He's like a huge Metal Gear Solid fan, and he basically like wrote it all out for me. And I was like, Alex, I don't understand what any of this means. And then it was like in preparation for the Phantom Pain, I think. And I was just like, I read the script and whatever, and I was like,
I'll just say
like,
that.
go in and then into the wind. I had no idea. I retained none of it. Like
That's good.
It's probably for the best.
Uncle. Yeah, exactly. Because like when I was playing and I was playing on stream, like the double crossing and the true identities of people, I was just like, oh my god! Like it was so good. And it's like I thought it would get tiring, the fact that everyone is like different motivations and different people and whatever. But I was like, no. Every single time a new one happened, I was like, oh.
Yeah, especially those last couple hours. It's just constant. It's just
Yeah.
people flipping in real time, and it's like, all right, I guess I can't trust you, but I can trust you, but I can't.
Yeah, so as we continue, for folks in the chat, please don't spoil future games. Just keep focused on Metal Gear Solid and maybe like previous stuff, because we'll come to why later on. But this is obviously two people playing the game for the first time, and I think we should get a good. And we talked about it briefly in terms of story there, but for Jake and Lucy, your overall impressions of the game. Lucy, let's start with you.
So, I mean, yeah, story-wise, you know how much I loved it. Like, just the music, the emotional stuff. Like, I mean, shout out to whoever localized that game, because I think they did a fantastic job with it. And it was very, very emotional, really well acted. The thing that really riled me up was and we talked about this briefly, was the controls. Like, playing on GOG, like when you play with a controller, and I put my DualShock 4 in, it doesn't map the button to quick equip, unequip. So I got all the way up to the Hind D fight. That's when we figured that out, and it was like, oh, it was yeah, it's a frustrating port. And in a lot of ways, like, it's weird how prescient the game is in a lot of ways, and when it comes to gameplay, like how far ahead of anything else it was at the time. Like, you know, just the walking around and leaving footprints in the snow, or
Whose footprints are these?
Whose footprints are
You
the
can see
fast travel
traces of
system.
like emergent gameplay, which
Yeah.
you know was kind of present here and there, but seeing that in a 3D environment, even in that like super basic form, is impressive. And like, you know, there are games now that can't even hit that level at times.
Yeah. And go on.
So I wanted you touched on something that I think is really important, Lucy. And the localizer that worked on this game, his name is Jeremy Blaustein, and he wrote a full piece about the bizarre story of the localization for Polygon in 2019. That's an amazing read. It's one of the Legends of Localization series. It's a really incredible read, and I think that the thing that is different about this game, as opposed to what happened, Lucy?
My doorbell just went.
Oh, it's probably your HelloFresh.
It's not.
So I think like one of the things that's amazing about this game that's different from the other Metal Gear games is that the localization was handled by Blaustein and like not necessarily overseen by Kojima directly. So like the game has a very different, I would say, more grounded tone and more grounded story. Like it's still a ridiculous story, but as the series progresses, the story gets so much crazier and so much weirder. And like, Blaustein had a lot to do with, I think, wrangling that in for an American audience. And I highly, highly encourage anybody that hasn't read that article to take a look at that piece from Polygon from 2019. It's a really great read.
Yeah, Blaustein is like one of the people who perhaps doesn't get remembered as defining what Metal Gear Solid is in a lot of ways. Like it's at least setting it on its path to, you know, to what it eventually became, and how giving that everyone that really, it kind of a perfect entry point into a franchise that became a blockbuster thing. Yeah, so like definitely an unsung hero of the and the team that worked with Blaustein, I imagine, of the Metal Gear Solid franchise. But yeah, carry on, Lucy.
But no, I mean, there's bits where I feel like just, you know, its age showed a little bit, and there were some fights in particular, like Hind D, I think that was just like my fault. We figured it out in the end. I'm just not a very patient person, and like the game definitely taught me patience, but I think Metal Gear Rex had some bullshit moments, and I think like the random bit at the end where it just makes you do a bunch of backtracking, I was like, this is kind of slowing it down the pace for me. But ultimately I thought the boss fights overall were really fun. I really enjoyed the fact that like they were so inventive, and obviously like Psycho Mantis is the one that people like talk about when they talk about inventive boss fights, but like unfortunately I didn't get to like experience the memory card stuff, but I did get to experience, you know, just like the cool ways that they thought around the fact that like people might struggle with it, so try doing this. Or the thing that really got me was the codec stuff, because it's like in a way like completely optional to like constantly have them available to talk to and get help from. And if you think back like 1998, that was the, you know, you would have to wait for a magazine to come out, or you'd have to buy the strategy guide, or you'd call a tip line. But having it like in the game and stuff is, I just thought that was really, really cool. And and also like it gave you little bits of story. So those are the bits that stick out to me.
To bring it back to Psycho Mantis quickly, how did you beat Psycho Mantis? Because I had issues. That was the toughest boss for me because
That was
I
the
had
dog
to
shit.
go. Well, I had to go from controller, which for the most part I was fine with. I used a Switch controller, which proved to be better because I'm used to A being there and B being below on that. So I had less issues. But when I had to switch to mouse and keyboard, and I was using like the arrow keys to move and like
Oh yeah, but yeah,
option
arrow
to
keys to
shoot and
move, and
stuff,
then
I was
yeah.
like that fight, like and also like that fight has been spoiled for me
Yeah.
like many times over, just because you know it is iconic. Like it was cool experiencing it, but like the second I had to reload a save a couple times because I'm like fumbling with mouse and keyboard on this game, and I was like, I'm not gonna remap controls for just one fight, which I hear like remapping is a pain.
So for people who don't know, before you answer this question, the context is in the Psycho Mantis fight, Psycho Mantis being a practicer of telepathy, reads your inputs if you stick to the main, if you play a one slot, whatever controller you're using, if you try and shoot him, he will dodge. And the puzzle is you need to use another input mechanism so that he can't read you. The trick to it on PC is the only input that you need to actually use from an alternate one is your shoot. So what I do is I move around with a controller and then I just press the shoot button on the keyboard because he can't read that. So that makes it considerably easier, but it's also still very finicky. But yeah, how did you get around that, Lucy?
How did I get around that? I think I went to keyboard, didn't I?
Yeah, I think you did
Psycho
keyboard. Yeah.
Yeah, Psycho Mantis didn't give me as much trouble. I did him in, you know, I did shoot the statues though to like
Yeah.
make it a bit easier for myself.
So
But
if you
like,
Oh, I didn't know about that.
if you call Campbell enough times for help, he realizes that you're having trouble with the inputs and will tell you to shoot the statues with the Psycho Mantis mask on them. And once you do that, it reveals Psycho Mantis's real face to him, and it basically upsets him and puts him on tilt, so he can't read you anymore.
So there
okay.
there are two things that I feel like you all missed out on this fight playing on PC. And the first is there's a moment in the PlayStation version where Psycho Mantis says to the player, "Put your controller on the floor and I'll move it with my mind." Right?
Yeah.
And so like as a kid, I set my controller down and he like pushes at the screen and the controller shakes so hard that it starts to like walk, right? And like, okay, that's a pretty cool gimmick, right? But then the second thing that happens is that he reads your mind, right? And so he does things like he'll check your memory card, and I remember this very distinctly. First of all, he checks the number of times that you save, and he goes, "You've saved often. You play very cautiously, or you haven't saved often. You play reckless, right? You're very reckless." And I remember that freaked me out, like, oh shit. And then he looks at the games on your memory card, and if you have Konami games saved, he'll comment on it. So at the time when I first played it, he was like, "Oh, you love Castlevania, don't you?" And like legitimately, I was like, "How does he know that? What the hell?" Like it freaked me out as a kid. Like it was such.
So there's
cool
Castlevania, Suikoden, I think is another one.
There's a couple other too. Yeah. That he'll comment on.
There's one more thing that he does that doesn't happen on PC. Is back in the day, 1998. When I was a young boy, inputs. You see it on the screen right now. So when you were switching inputs on a screen like we do from like HDMI 1 to 2, 3, back in the day on those TVs, you'd get like everything would black out, and then in the corner it would say video while it was searching for the new input. And in the game, it would do that in the middle of the fight, and it would say Hideo in the corner.
Right.
But because it happens
video.
so quickly, because it happens so quickly, it looks like your TV has changed inputs, and it freaks you out. Like I remember being like, "Oh shit, what happened?" And he's just like messing with you in that moment. So all of those things are removed from the PC version, which kind of lessens the boss fight in a big way.
Yeah, we've got chat chiming in here. Blood Arm says Suikoden and Pro Evo. Zimbu the Monkey says Breath of Fire also. Oh, Breath of Fire is Capcom, so maybe not that one. But there are a few other games. F. Shavin says Vagrant Story, which I fucking wish.
Yeah, and on Nintendo he does like Nintendo games. He will take or in Twin Snakes he'll like call out Nintendo games instead. So Jake, what was your overall impression of it?
I loved it. I had such a great time. I thought I agree with a lot of what Lucy was saying in terms of a lot of things feel pretty aged, and coming at it now is a bit tough. I didn't have as many issues with the control as I thought. I think a big thing was because I used a Nintendo Switch controller, at least for me. For some reason, just the switching between the A and B button just fixed the issues I was having, and I was able to go right through. I will say, like Lucy said too, there were some bosses that I really didn't enjoy. I think
who?
Sniper Wolf particularly.
Oh.
The first one. The first one when I'm trying to aim with a D-pad and the aiming is like crazy. I finally figured out that I could take the diazepam to steady my shot, which was cool, but like aiming that was such a pain, and I feel like the second I'd get situated, I'd get shot, and then I'd have to move, otherwise she'd keep doing it. Didn't have much issue with the final boss though. I did enjoy that fight. All in all though, it like I really enjoyed it. It felt really good to finally play this game because I guess for some background, like the first Metal Gear game I played was Twin Snakes, but I didn't finish because I rented it, so I had it for a day, and it was a little too dense for me at the time. Yeah, I think I rented it for like a day or two. And then I played 2. Once again, I played 2 on Xbox because I didn't have a PlayStation. And that once again was like a little too much for me. I was also disappointed because of something that happens early on. I won't spoil it for people who might be playing along, but there's something that happened that really disappointed me. Especially, I won't get too much into it. And then I played 4 on the PS3 because I finally had a PlayStation. So I played 4, which is the most, from what I've played of the Metal Gear games, probably the most batshit insane one where they just throw a bunch of shit at you. And if you haven't played the other ones, you are absolutely fucked. And that's like how I felt through that game. I loved it. I think I played through that game like 6 or 7 times. Didn't understand what was going on, but I loved the gameplay. And then played 3 because the HD collection came out, and I loved 3. 3, I think to this day is one of my favorite games. So to finally play 1 felt really damn good to have that under my belt, and I really enjoyed it. Like I am looking forward to playing it again. Like I got a PlayStation Classic because I want to play on a TV, and I want to play with a PlayStation controller. I don't want to play on GOG again. Overall, really enjoyed it. I really liked the story and seeing the background of those characters that I kind of already knew because I've heard the recap so many times, but actually being there and seeing it was awesome.
Yeah, in terms of like the controller stuff, the thing that we're referring to is Lucy mentioned that GOG doesn't map your controls to a controller at all very well, and the main culprit, one of the big culprits, is the quick select and unselect of items and weapons, which is in the game, instead of reloading, you can do that and it refills your ammo, and that is not essential, but it makes the game considerably more playable. So you miss out on a lot of that stuff, and you can remap it. It's just very finicky. Like I had to go in, remap it, go out, and then I'd go back in and see if it worked, and it hadn't taken. So you just have to keep doing it until you realize, okay, it's taken.
So I didn't play with that. Didn't even know that was a thing. Just ran out of ammo, reloaded automatically. I was like, that's how we're gonna do this.
Yeah. Zach, what about you? Did you replay it, or did you just kind of like, are you going off memory, or?
So I didn't replay it for this show because I've played this game. Like I'm not exaggerating. I've probably played this game 70 to 100 times. Like when this game first came out when I was in middle school, I I got to a point where I could beat this game in like probably 3 hours or under because I just knew it like the back of my hand. I could just jam through it. Like it's like muscle memory to me, you know? And I replayed it in 2017. I did 1, 2, and 3 all back to back. And I honestly found 1 like really not fun to play. Like, even though I know how to play it and like got through it relatively quickly, it's so clunky and so it really pales in comparison gameplay wise to 2 and 3. I think that it's tough for me to try and go back to this game now because I remember it a very specific way as a kid. Like I can't state enough, like this game changed what I thought video games could be. Like I'll never ever forget. Like, so when this game came out, you know, Jake's talking about a rental. Like I rented this game as well at the behest of a friend of mine. And he's like, you got to play this game. I need to, like, you got to play it. You're going to love it so much. And so I rented it, and I like fake sick and stayed home from school so that I could play it. Like I could keep playing it. And I actually, I think I've told this story on a podcast before, but my dad came home from lunch and I got like busted. I was supposed to be like in bed and I was like sitting in the living room playing Metal Gear in my underwear. And he came in and we had a moment where he was like, and I was like, looking at each other like, fuck, I'm busted. But anyway, I don't think that the gameplay holds up super well. Like I think that the story is still incredible. I think that there's a lot of stuff that does work, but I think like Lucy getting stuck on the hind D, like there's a perfect sequence that really kind of crystallizes this for me, and that's when you're escaping the hangar to go to fight Vulcan Raven for the first time in the tank. You have to like smoke the cigarettes to crawl under the laser beams, and like in a modern 3D game that wouldn't be an issue, right? Like you could navigate around those beams like so easy. But in this version of this game, it fucking sucks. And like that's something that I did and that's something that I did in like one shot as a kid, like no problem after I'd played it a bunch of times. But like going back to it in 2017, I was stuck there for like 40 minutes, like just like crawling forward and then crawling backward and then crawling forward. And it's just like, this isn't fun. Like this is not fun to play, and it's ruining what I feel like my memory of that game. Yeah, F Tongle says it in the chat. It's just the limitations of the time. But those limitations really show themselves here. Like I would rather watch Lucy play it on stream or watch a cutscene compilation or something than go back and try and play the game again. That's why I hope, you know, we've heard all these rumors, or maybe it's just optimistic thinking that like, oh, maybe Blue Point will do a remake of it. And I would love a modern remake of Metal Gear Solid so that a new generation can experience it with, you know, quality of life improvements and stuff. But I don't know that I'll play this game, this PlayStation 1 version of this game again, because it hurts to play it. Like, honestly, to go back to it now and be like, oh, this isn't nearly as amazing as I remember it being, you know?
To speak on the lasers, it took me a very long time to realize that the lasers were supposed to be going up and down. I thought they were just going back and forth. And I was like, there is no way for me to get through this. And then finally, I think I just Googled it. I was like, how do you get past lasers? And it was like, just wait. And I was like, I am waiting. And then I did first person mode and was like,
yeah,
oh, okay. That's why. And then I just crawled right through. Thankfully, that laser grid disappears after you've made through it once, though. So you don't need to keep going back to it, because that would have driven me nuts.
So I don't think I had that many issues with the lasers, except for
you
that
got
one
through
point.
it pretty quickly.
There was one where in the room with all like the big room with the 9 rooms of the small like little storage things, there was like one laser thing there, but it was just like awkwardly placed because it was right, you had to kind of go around a box, and that was where I struggled the most. But like, yeah, lasers were okay. But Creed brought up a great point where it's like, not just that, but like the GOG has really unintuitive descriptions when you're binding keys.
Yeah.
Like quick unequip is listed as weapon.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's kind of like, I think I was really lucky when I played, because I had, you know, a bunch of experienced people watching and helping me. Because I think if I had to do that by myself, I would have probably would have stopped playing, which I would have ended up regretting, because it's
so I watched Lucy's stream of it, and I also did a stream and replayed it, and I finished it in like 4 hours or something
Oh yeah,
like
you
that.
can
Kind
jam
of
through it. Yeah.
you can easily jam through it. I am the opposite of Zach, where I think it holds up really well. Like, I think it's awkward to play, but from a gameplay perspective, I think for every one thing that is like awkward and weird, there's usually an interesting idea that someone who's playing it from the first time will go, oh, that's cool, even though it's got this other thing next to it that's like. So watching Lucy, I could see Lucy was getting frustrated with certain points, but there was also a moment where she would say, oh, this is really interesting, or this is really cool, or that was really fun. Like even the Hind D fight, like her figuring out, this is where I need to hide from this thing, or realizing you can track the hind like as it goes underneath by using the stinger to keep an eye on it, that kind of stuff. And the Psycho Mantis fight and the ninja fight, like the whole kind of like the hand-to-hand combat stuff. I think that it holds up pretty well for me. And the caveat for me is, like Zach, I've played it 1 trillion times, so like I have no issues, and like that kind of skews how much. I think the thing that this game struggles with is it's been influential, and it changed action games in such a massive way, and action games have evolved significantly because of it, that when you go back to it, it feels awkward and weird because of how far we've come because of it. And like I feel like you can play this. Modern sensibilities are what keep it from feeling good to a lot of people. I think if you're able to put yourself into the mindset of, this is an older game, I need to scale my kind of thinking around design back a bit, and maybe think about how would leave a little space for awkwardness to happen. I think you can still have a lot of fun with it. Every boss fight is something cool. Like
the boss
the
fights are
revolver,
amazing. Like
even the moments like
yeah.
You start off, the first area is a really interesting tutorial level. Like you emerge and you basically get to grips with vision cones, sound. There's puddles there. You can use knocking. You know that you need to be patient because you've got to wait for the lift to come down. If you walk into the water, you realize, oh, there's stuff hidden around. And then that is an amazing like encapsulation of the Metal Gear experience in a very short moment. Then you get up onto the actual snowy area and you get the footsteps, surveillance cameras, spotlights. You got multiple points of entry. And then everything from there is like heavy story. You meet Master Miller, and then the boss fights like Revolver, Ocelot. I can't think of any boss fights that's similar to that kind of like chase style boss fight. And like
That
no
was a
one,
fun fight.
it's a fun
Really
fight,
like that fight.
and like if you might try something weird like using C4 in a room full of C4, like Lucy did, and then be surprised that everything exploded. But like and then the introduction of Ocelot, like, and his weird like eroticism of reloading and like cordite and the smell of gunfire in the morning, bullets and that kind of stuff. And but like the Vulcan Raven fight in the tank is really interesting as well, because you're fighting a tank as a man and you're just trying to lob a grenade into into it. It's like so weird.
And occasionally the tank will run over you. Just
yeah.
Sometimes
And then you
you'll
got
get
like
run over.
and then you got like not chaff grenades, Claymore mines to think about as well. I think the Sniper Wolf fight is really like, I really love that fight because it is that it also is like preceded and kind of like followed up with a tension where like you come into that boss fight, and it's rare that you come into a boss fight, something happens, and then you need to leave immediately. Meryl gets shot, and you know that the only way you can carry on and save her potentially and move on is to go all the way back and get the diazepam and the PSG-1 and that kind of stuff. And you come back, that feeling of going back is just building tension. Like the entire time you're building dread that you need to go back into this area again and fight this thing. And when you get there, it's just like nerve-wracking.
Right.
And then you have the torture.
That aspect of the fight I did really like. I did like how you had to leave. You just had to leave Meryl there. And like, you almost second guess yourself, right? You're like, should I actually be doing this? There's got to be something nearby. Because like a modern game wouldn't do that. Like maybe you'd go back into the cave and there was a secret room with a sniper and you'd walk back in and that would be it. But you actually have to go back. And I did really like that. I think for me, it was just the actual act of trying to aim down that sight and hit her. But I did really like the second fight with her. Although I don't know if I did it right. I just was using the Nikita.
Yeah, that is the
As
easy
a
way to
strat.
get it done. That is a definite. That's what I use. You can just hide in the rock.
I was going to, but then everyone was like, I think I just was like, okay, if I do it with sniper rifle this time. No, I wanted to do it with the sniper rifle, but I was like, if I don't do it this time, we'll use the Nikita.
Yeah.
But then I
My recommendation is always like do it the honest way the first time.
Honest way.
And like after that, yeah.
Get the honest kill.
That gal can take some fucking rockets to her face like repeatedly. You gotta love to see it. They're these Kurds, man. They're built different. But
Okay,
like
time out. I gotta just say, Evan Langer just showed up in the chat and he said, "Lads on tour, more like losers on tour." Got him.
this guy with his Evan Langer is GameSpot's notorious baby game fan. He only plays baby games.
That's what I've heard about him.
Unbelievable.
But it's and then like there's weird quirks within the presentation and characters and that kind of stuff. Like Nastasha Romanenko, a character you never have to talk to if you don't want to. Like the whole Deep Throat Watergate scandal, like reference, and like it's placed within politics and socioeconomical, historical stuff that happens, and like even characterization stuff, like Otacon and that moment. Do you believe love can bloom on a battlefield? Like it's a joke in this day, it's a meme in this day, but like back then it was like profound. You were like, oh shit, it's going for it, and it's like. I think it's like it's a must-play game, and I wish that I could play it for the first time again. But I want to go back to Lucy and Jake and Zach as well, and do like highs and lows. So let's start with the highs.
Before we get into that, I just want to say, like, regardless of what I think about the how the gameplay has held up, I think that you absolutely have to play this game. Like, if you're a modern gamer and like you have the access to this game, like you owe it to yourself to play this game, because for this game to have come out in 1998, it was so far ahead of what every other video game was doing in terms of gameplay, in terms of story, in terms of voice acting. Like I can't state enough. Like it just blew me away. Like I just didn't know the whole time that I was playing it. I just remember thinking like, I didn't know video games could be like this. You know, like I just didn't know that games could do this. I remember when I finished it on like a Saturday or a Sunday morning, and I was playing in the living room, and my dad, big Metal Gear Solid fan. He came out and he was,
apparently very good at sneaking.
Yeah,
like,
he came out and the credits were rolling, and he was like, "Oh, you're watching a movie?" And I was like, "No, I just finished this video game." And he was like, saw that there's a cast list, and he's like, "This video game has a cast?" And I was like, "Dad, it's like a movie. It's just like a movie." Like, it was crazy to me. But
so like, for me, like, this is when I finished this game for the first time, I sat down to write my thoughts down about it. And it was the first time I'd properly done that. Like I sat down and like wrote analysis of the characters, of the graphics, how it came together, the themes, that kind of stuff. And that was the moment I realized I wanted to write about games for a living.
Does that exist anywhere?
Yeah. No.
It does.
I know. I think I have like a paper version of it somewhere. But that was the first piece of game writing that I ever did, in a serious way, beyond like, noting down stuff that I'd played just to keep track of it. That was like a full. Jason Nitty says it's an NFT.
A non-fungible
sell my first review as a. Yeah, but that's like, and I did that because that was a moment I was like, oh, I need to take video games seriously, like different. These hit in a way that nothing else does, and like that is like, this is the game that made me want to do what I do now, and like it is unbelievable because of that. But yeah, like Lucy and Jake, highs. What are your highs? Like you can pick a couple, as many as you want. Yeah.
I actually do want to back it up a little because I am curious, Lucy. Is this your first Metal Gear game you've like played start to finish? Like, is the whole series just kind of been an anomaly for you for this whole time?
Yeah, my experience with Metal Gear is weird because I've talked about this on stream, but like I played a bunch of Phantom Pain. No clue what was really going on.
That's fine.
I played Tam was reviewing Metal Gear Survive, and I unfortunately had to help out. It's always fun working with Tam, but they were like, "Yeah, I mean, we don't have any capture for the game, so can you play it and capture it?" And I was like, "Yeah." that was a bizarre game. That was a truly weird one. But I didn't finish it because obviously we don't put like end game stuff in the video review. So I just captured enough, and like Tam had captured some as well. So that's my experience. Oh no, but I did get Metal Gear Solid 4. And I was so confused with the just man smoking for half an hour load, install screen. That when the game actually finally started, I was like,
he's actually vaping.
He is vaping.
Is he?
Yeah, he's vaping. Yeah.
When the game actually finally started, and it just, at least from my recollection at the time, it just chucked you in, and I had no idea what I was doing, and I kept dying, and I was like, I'm just gonna put this down and no, because
no, my bad. He's not vaping. He's smoking.
He's smoking a cigarette.
Yeah. Vaping comes in MGS5. My bad.
Yeah, Metal Gear Solid 4 does, and it's so different from the other ones too. Like the way that you sneak in that game is so different. But so if you've not finished a Metal Gear Solid game,
This is
if
the
you've
first
not
one.
finished a Metal Gear Solid game, Lucy, I had a follow-up question. How long have you been a fake gamer?
My entire life, my whole life.
Yeah. So highs, both of you.
Jake, you go first.
I think the story was.
Is there a particular point in a particular part of the story or character that really like stuck with you?
I mean, I think when you get to the Gray Fox fight, or the Gray Fox fight, I think that was the moment where, because I already knew who Gray Fox was because some of the other games, but like actually fully understanding those characters' backgrounds, even though I guess I haven't played Metal Gear 1 and 2, which they actually explore those, but just seeing all those connections and like how Snake meets Otacon and his explanation for his name, like I think that moment where I was like,
it's just like in my Japanese animes.
Captain P Pants, as I like to call him.
That moment was when I really started to get hooked, and I could kind of like overlook the issues I was having with the gameplay and like push myself through. And then I think when you get captured, and though the mashing was kind of rough, like I'm so thankful we don't mash through stuff in games anymore. But like when you get captured and you have those discussions with Ocelot and stuff, I thought all that was
so
that was really cool.
For that Gray Fox moment, I want to point out the reason why it for me, like I remember I hadn't played the first time I played Metal Gear Solid. I hadn't played the Gear game, so I didn't have a lot of framework and knowledge for Gray Fox. Gray Fox is easily one of my favorite characters in video games. I owned the Cyborg Ninja Gray Fox helmet. But like the reason,
put it on.
It's behind me. It's up there. I'll get
Jake's
it in a bit.
camera fried.
Jake's vanished.
I was afraid of this.
Yeah.
But what really sells it, without the context, is Snake's reaction straight after during the codec, where he calls up and he's like, Gray Fox, that ninja colonel, it's Gray Fox. And you're like, oh shit, this is important. And then everyone just proceeds to be like, no, that's impossible. That is like, in that moment, I was like, I don't know who this Gray Fox dude is, but I need to know, and I fucking love him. He's amazing. But yeah, carry on, Jake.
I mean, like the Gray Fox scene, no signal here.
Jake's codec.
I put you in a full screen, Jake, so that you just no signal sign on.
Everyone can see him. There is no signal going on up here. I really liked the Ocelot fight as well.
So, La Bamba Dude Baka in the chat says Hideo won. Sorry, Jake. Go on.
Yeah, I mean, it was really the story stuff, like seeing all the twists and turns, and how, I don't know, not having played Metal Gear Solid 1, I was kind of worried that a lot of these twists would feel forced, or it would be too much, or it would just kind of go overboard, or it would get a little ridiculous. And I don't think it does. Like it is able to just like hit you with one after the other, but the way it does it makes a lot of sense. You know, like they rationalize all of these flip-flops between different characters, and like especially that last section when you're about to face off Metal Gear and you fight Vulcan Raven for the final time, which that fight was a lot of fun, like setting up C4 around corners and waiting for him to go by.
I did that too.
So think about that fight, and then think about the Mr. Freeze fight in Arkham Asylum. Like so similar. Like those fights are so similar. Like it's so clear the influence that this game had on that team. But anyway, sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much wrapping up though in terms of like some of the highs I had, but I think just that build up to that Vulcan Raven fight, I did think it was a little funny how he was like telling Snake
Yeah.
secrets that as he was dying. I was like, all right,
Also,
there's got to
it's
be a
Big
character
like
to do
Bond
this.
villain
It is.
shit.
It is. I said this
Exactly.
on Lucy's stream, but it's the clearest indication that at some point, basically the '90s equivalent of Kojima went to Wikipedia and tapped in Alaska and like read out everything he learned. Like it was like air pulling, muck tuck contest. Here's all the things I know about Alaska in
Yeah.
one cutscene.
Uh-huh.
That I also fucking love all the acronyms that
Yes.
just
Oh,
don't make any
yeah.
sense and probably are never fucking used.
Five, five,
Just
sixes and pineapples. What?
like,
Wait,
what do I
what?
have for it? There's one I wrote down that I thought was pretty funny. Let's see my notes. Horny as fuck. Love all the made up
Mhm.
acronyms. I didn't write down an acronym. I thought I wrote down an acronym, but it was like the first one he says. It was like easy entry something. I don't know. And it was
Yeah,
just
OSP.
like
Yeah.
OSP. Yeah, it's like this is
On-site procurement. Yeah, I think that's real. That's a real acronym that
Oh,
people use in
really?
the military. Yeah,
It's
on-site
so good.
procurement.
Well, I guess it's just like paired with David Hayter too, who's just like, so where's the OSP? And I'm like, no, you made that shit up. That's not real. I'm not buying that.
Also, if you think this game is horny, like wait till any of the later games in the series.
Yeah, this is the
Holy
least
Oh,
horny
yeah.
game in the
I
series.
can't wait.
And this game is extremely horny. So we just have more
Yeah.
hiding places than men.
Yeah.
Sorry, what?
Before we recorded, I was talking about the snake beater achievement I got in MGS2 the other day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, Lucy, what were your highs?
I mean, so I think
The
throughout
Hindley
this I've
fight
talked
mostly.
about. Shut up. I've talked about a lot of things that I really enjoyed. I think so I'm just going to pair it back to like one particular moment, but I think the sort of, you think that Naomi's against you and you don't trust her, and then you have that codec call and she tells you about her parents and her brother and why she did it and what Grey Fox means to her. And then, shortly after, it's the Metal Gear Rex fight, and the way he comes in to help you, I was like, oh, that's so good. Like, I feel that connection, and then the way that he like essentially sacrifices himself, and you can't, except unless you're me, where you are trying to mash the button.
Oh, I can't do it.
And yeah, it's like, and the way that Snake is kind of going, no, I can't do it, and then you talk to Naomi after, and it's like, oh, it's so that bit
and he
for me
doesn't
was
tell
the real
her.
highlight.
He doesn't
Yeah.
tell her that Grey Fox killed her
Yep.
family, and he
Yep.
just says he loved you and he saved all
Yep.
of us. God,
That bit where I
that is
was
such a
like,
good moment.
The bit was so good.
For me,
That bit was highlight.
that is my high. Like the whole Naomi, Frankie Yeager, Cyborg Ninja story is like my favorite part of that game, because obviously she's there because they experimented on him and they used him like a guinea pig, and he's lost who he is, and you can tell like that's why he's like losing himself. He's like banging his head on the floor, and like he's gone through so much shit, and the connection to Snake is what kind of brings him back. So like it's the idea of like brothers in arms, like people who go through these horrible war situations, and soldiers being used as pawns in political machinations, and that kind of stuff becomes a bigger theme. But it's like the thing that the games always try to do is like explore the emotional core and the heart of that kind of conflict, and this is the first time they do it, and it's done really well, where you can see the impact of what fighting for a living has had on these people in terms of their families, them as people, and kind of like how they've evolved and gone on. Yeah, that's definitely a high for me. What about you, Zach? What was your high?
So as a kid, I remember the biggest moments for me, the hallway scene when you're heading into the Cyborg Ninja fight, where there's just all the genome soldiers just slaughtered, and you can tell that whoever made it through that hall is just the ultimate badass. Like I remember coming into that, seeing that cutscene, and like having to sit for a minute to be like, okay, whatever's in this next room is going to be really awful. Like whatever is in this next room is going to be really hard or really scary or whatever. And then the big moment for me is Sniper Wolf's death, which they do. I won't say that. That's a big spoiler. But Sniper Wolf's death in this game, when she talks about like her history and how she got caught up into like even becoming a terrorist, into the cell, and like why she's a sniper and what her life was like. That was the first time that a game elicited like sadness from me. Like it was the first time that I had felt anything except like I have to survive or I have to win or I have to get points or whatever. Like it was something different for me. And that was the moment that it really clicked for me of like, oh, this game is really, really something else. But yeah, I mean, I love all of the crazy fucking plot twists and how even to this day, like they still make sense. Like they still work. And like, I think it's wild that this 24-year-old game has a story that is still, I think, probably the best story told in video games. Like I think it's still unrivaled. I think there's very few, maybe The Last of Us 2 comes close into just like the emotional impact and the actual, I know you don't like The Last of Us 2, Tim, but that game for me is similar in not its themes, but just in the way that it tells its story and like the way you feel about those characters by the end of that game. And Metal Gear is the first game that taught me that games could do something like that. So
one of the things I also really love about this game is everyone's kind of connection to the previous games that come like in that moment. She mentions Saladin, who is like, people refer to Big Boss in different ways, and that was massive for me, like building the mythos without going too hard in it. And that was like, I was desperate. I needed to know who this Saladin dude was and who is this Big Boss, and like why were they after his genes, why were they after his DNA so much, and like the mythology building is so strong in this game as well. I guess the main question, we were supposed to do lows, but I think we covered lows pretty thoroughly with the port and that kind of stuff and that kind of stuff. But I think the big question is, do you think it holds up? And how do you feel, Lucy and Jake specifically, how do you feel now that you have context for the fandom?
I think it holds up. Like my
Uh-oh. Yeah, I agree.
I agree. Excellent points, Lucy.
I'm into that.
Jake,
oh no.
Do you think it holds up?
Yeah. Should I just go?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think my gripes aside.
Oh, she's back.
She's back. Oh, no.
She's got
Oh, I mean, the problem is, like, I don't understand what, like, my speed test is 700 down, 20 up.
Like,
you're back now. Yeah.
People in the chat are saying she makes a good argument. Yeah. It's just your face, like, it's fully that Simpsons face where they catch Homer, like,
like in a smear frame.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't understand what it is. It's so frustrating. It happens like on my streams and stuff too. But anyway, like, Jake, do you want to go or I'll go?
No, you can finish your thought. Or start it again, probably.
Yeah, what was my thought? I think it holds up, like, gripes aside. Like, there were some points where I felt like I was fully in the flow of it and, like, I could play it. And then there were some times where I felt like I was battling against the game. But, like, I loved it overall. I think it really holds up. And, like, now that I have context and why people love it so much, I definitely can easily say that I get it.
Nice.
Or the collection, it's I want to explore the rest of it and see where this
can't
goes.
Wait for you to play Metal Gear Solid 2.
2's gonna be a hell of a time for you.
I mean, we're not talking about Metal Gear Solid 2 here, but like 2
Season 2, baby.
2 is one of the smartest fucking games ever created, ever. And today, to this day, that they pulled off what they pull off in that game is fucking insane. And it's also like, it's like predictive in the way that like how predictive it is for a game from 2001 is fucking nuts. It's crazy. Anyway, I digress.
Jake?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Lucy. I think it holds up pretty well. I mean, yeah, gameplay issues aside, I still would recommend it to people. I think before I played Metal Gear Solid 1, if someone asked me if they should play Metal Gear Solid and I knew they'd be into it, I'd just say, like, start with 3 or 5. Like, if you want to get into story stuff, like 3, like chronologically, I guess, is the first, right? Or they're like, there might be a spin-off that takes place before that.
No, it's the first one. Yeah.
But having played 1, I don't think I would ever do that again. I think I just start with 1. Like, there are some pains getting through the figuring out the controls and getting it running on GOG or getting a hold of a PlayStation Classic for $12 or whatever it might be. But that said, I think it's totally worth just starting with 1 and going from there, because I was at the edge of my seat pretty much the entire game. I would say, like, I was fully invested. Like, it felt like a modern game in the sense that, like, the story was just like pushing me through every step. There wasn't a lull. There wasn't a point where I felt like where it felt like it was like, okay, the story's gonna take a back seat. We got to pad this out a little bit. So why don't you like kill a bunch of? I mean, there was the stairs. The stairs were.
Oh, the stairs.
I love the stairs.
Oh my
I
God.
love the
Of course you do.
stairs.
Of course you do.
I
You're a glutton
love
for
it.
punishment.
Not even
Stand the
punishment.
stairs.
It's that like sudden. It's like their game grabbing you by the scruff of the neck and shaking you back into paying attention and like really because it does that a couple times. It does
Yeah,
it
the
there.
elevator too.
It does at the elevator where Archon's face is just like right up against the screen and
Yeah.
you're in there with the. It's like the survival horror moments, the
Right.
horror moments.
So
And it does
that-
it less so when you're like taking the, but similar, but like you're taking the lift down and the enemies jump into the thing and you're
Yeah.
like just there. Yeah, go
That
on,
was
Karen.
the moment where I gave up trying to do a run without killing anyone. I was trying to like get through, and I hadn't killed anyone until that point, and then I accidentally threw someone off, and I was like, "Well,
Well, there
we're
goes.
killing
Bye.
this one."
Stun grenades are your friend in that section.
Yeah.
Like just keep loving it.
But I mean, that aside though, like the pace that game keeps through, I think it took me like 12 hours, 11 hours or so. It was super impressive when you consider how that game looks, like the kind of like, I love the voice acting, but I feel like if you're not used to that or if you're not ready for that, that could be kind of off-putting. But like I had a great time. Also, Creed did point out, he was like, no one's talked about the music. The music is fucking awesome too.
It's so good.
Yeah.
The music is unbelievable. Like I was joking at the time where it's like I think that the boss themes will haunt me. Like dun, 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 like will always. I mean, because they,
I
spent
think
most of my playthrough listening to it, but like the emotional beats, like compounded with the music, just you knew shit was going down when the music just changed.
If there's one thing that's like you can look forward to is this series has some of the most banging music in video games.
The theme for Guns of the Patriots is probably my favorite Metal Gear Solid
I
theme,
mean,
but-
Lucy and Jake know my history with Sins of the Father, like very, very much so. But like every game, like, and Sins of the Father isn't even my favorite song from the Metal Gear Solid franchise. There's like so many. Every game has like just a top to bottom like banging soundtrack.
The sound design overall is really, really fucking amazing. And I think one of the most fucked up things that people could ever do is to make the guard alert tone like your ringtone or text tone. Because like I remember that was really
Immediately on
popular
edge.
like several years ago, because like whenever it would go off like ring, it really would like like I'd get sweaty, I'm like, fuck, what the hell?
So that speaking of sound design though, that is something with Kojima games that always stands out that I feel like doesn't get enough attention. There is a quality, like I can hear a game and I know that it is a Kojima game because of the type, the footsteps like sound like a Kojima game. I can't really explain it, but there's like an extra crunchiness to it. Like even Death Stranding, which doesn't take place in that universe, like the sound, you hear the sounds and you're like, yeah, this is a Kojima game. Like if I closed my eyes and didn't know what this is, I'd be like, oh, is this like coming from Metal Gear or something?
Yeah, and he also like the gamey sounds of their game, like the sound of you bringing up the menu in this, like that bwee, 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 and like moving through there,
or like
it's
scrolling
all
through the weapons.
and like the codec, like adjusting the frequency. There's so many different like sounds and the amount of attention paid. You can tell this game, like you look at the game and it looks kind of gnarly these days because no one's got eyes really. There's not a definition. No one's mouth moves. It's like a lot of nodding heads. It's like puppetry. But like I think that is, people forget that is a symptom of the ambition of this game. Like they really crammed in a lot into this, and they just had to make concessions here and there. And there's
also so much other attention to detail. Like sure, the faces don't animate and stuff, but like in the sniper wolf fights, like how much did your butt clench when you, through the scope of your sniper rifle, you got that red flash from her dot
in your eyes,
and you're like, fuck, like,
and you can see like the condensation of her coming out of her mouth to track her.
Yeah.
Like there's that, and there's so much to it. But yeah, I guess what a great game.
One note I have was the after you beat Psycho Mantis and the little cutscene that plays after that, the way my like thinking shifted throughout that. Like it started and I was like, oh my god, he's dead. Like I hate this stuff. Like I don't want to hear I don't want a therapy session at his death. And then as it keeps going, I'm like, this is actually pretty good. Actually,
really interesting.
I'm pretty into this. Like this is really cool. And then, after he dies, it's like, Wow, that was way more profound than I had expected it to be right from the outset. Because I was like, usually anything anyone says in games, movies before they die is always fucking corny. And it is kind of corny that he does it as he's dying. But I think the content is like, or just the way it's written, I think is really good.
Why was Godzilla on the screen shaking hands? That was very weird.
Sorry, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe I clicked over to my desktop. My bad.
the other thing is like, this is a game that I feel like it keeps giving the more you play it. Like in Lucy's playthrough in the furnace area, she used an elevator, and I was like, I've never used the elevator.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
like I was like,
found an
what the
elevator
hell?
and people were like,
Yeah,
what the
I was
hell's
like,
that?
what the hell? I've never seen that elevator. And there's like thing like, for example, Lucy, you never knew this, but like even Jake, like in the Psycho Mantis fight, you know, when he disappears and moves around the room, if you press the first person button, the camera switches to his perspective, so you can tell exactly where he is.
Ooh.
You can
Really?
see him moving, into position, so you can track him and avoid his weird ball thing like that. And each boss fight has like a weird, a bunch of different ways to approach it, and that's something that they build on going forward.
That's super cool.
So next question is, do you think that we should? This comes from Batman in the chat. Do you think that there should be a Metal Gear Solid remake?
Only if Bluepoint do it.
Yeah,
Like,
I think
the-
Konami could do it as well, but just give
I
it
mean-
to a team that cares.
They could, but I mean, the thing about Bluepoint is like the reverence they have for the games that they remake, and they've done it with like Shadow of the Colossus, one of the best games ever made. They did it with
The,
Demon's
the
Souls.
HD collection that you've got there is
Yeah,
Bluepoint.
that's also Bluepoint. I just caught that when I was looking at the back of the box. Achievements too. Very excited. No, like, and we've interviewed Bluepoint. They did an audio logs, and like you can just tell how much they love games, and their mission is to just take the game that you remember playing 20 odd years ago, but make it look like you thought it looked all that time ago, right?
Yeah.
And make it feel like the game you played, but with modern sensibilities. So it's it's easier. Like I mean, the big thing that we've been saying today is like this game is fantastic, but just like get past the control scheme, right? Just push through that. And I feel like they did it with Shadow of the Colossus. They modernized that control scheme, and like it was the changes they made were so good. Like they Bluepoint the only people I would seriously trust with it. But I would love to see what they would do with it, because I just like people are probably going to be put off by us saying like the control scheme isn't great, right? Or like the fact some people would say like, oh, it looks too old, or I don't have this PC, or I don't have a PS Classic. It's like, I think it would be a good candidate. And like the love for it is still so strong as well. People would dig it.
Do you guys think that if Konami did a sort of Resident Evil 2 remake style of this, do you think that could work? Like maybe like a change in perspective, if like the game is balanced for that perspective? Like do you think a shift that big could actually work in a remake, or would you not want that at all?
I think it could work.
I think that that's probably the direction that the remake any kind of remake would go, would be to put it in like, a modern engine and have it be a third person over the shoulder style sneak 'em up, which would be amazing. Like I think it would be very, very cool. What do I personally want to see from a remake? Like I would love to see a more stylized version of this game. Like keep the top-down perspective. Keep, like, a lot of people are asking about the voice acting. Like, do you re-record? Just like keep the voice tracks. Like get those original voice tracks, slam those in this new game. Make major quality of life improvements, but don't change the overall like perspective. Don't change the overall like vibe and mechanics of the game, with the exception of just making it feel and work better. And like honestly, what I would like to see, make it like hyper stylized, cell shaded, like make it a throwback in the way that it's like, this looks like one of my Japanese animes. You know what I mean? Like keep it a relic in the way that celebrates the original, but also like dictates like, hey, this is an older game. We're trying to make this like feel a very specific way, not necessarily like we're going to do a from the ground up remake.
I think
kind of like the way that they did Link's Awakening on the Switch, not not nearly as toyetic, I'm saying, obviously, but like something with that sort of thing where it's like, this is a better version of that game, but it is the same game, you know?
What about an art style kind of similar to like the cover art of that HD collection Lucy
Like
has? 'Cause
Yoji
I think,
Shinkawa, like,
yeah,
Oh,
I
the
think
she
that
Shinkawa
art
style.
is so sick.
fucking
Yeah.
awesome.
I would, yeah, that's good. And on the other extreme is like the more cartoony Acid style.
Mhm.
Like Acid has like weird proportions and that kind of stuff. For me, I think what Zach said is a great idea, but also I think that there's an opportunity to kind of use Metal Gear Solid 1 as a new beginning for the franchise as a whole, and also give it to a new like studio to be their thing. And I want that to be Bluepoint, because Bluepoint is due their own game. Like
Yeah,
they're
definitely.
due making their own thing. I feel like they've cut their teeth and they've earned their stripes on making the best versions of other people's things. And I feel like they're like might be in there being like, we want to be a real boy ourselves now. And for me, I feel like giving them Metal Gear Solid 1 remake is a best of both worlds situations, where they have that foundation, but that on its own doesn't stand as a game with enough depth in the modern day. There's massive holes in it. Like, and I feel like if they take that game and then kind of explore the stuff on the fringes and create original content. They're the only studio that I think I would trust, or I would like to see given the opportunity to create original content around what already exists, if you get what I mean. And I feel like they Shadow Moses, it feels massive in your mind and when you first play it, but it's actually very small. I feel like they could like push the boundaries back on it and create a bunch of side content and interesting new mechanics in that world, while also having the core Golden Path be the original Hideo Kojima Konami classic, and create something that's a mixture between what we knew before and what we got in Metal Gear Solid 5 as an open world type experience. I would love for them to do that, because then we get our remake. It looks incredible. It's true to the original, but also Bluepoint gets the opportunity to create original content, cut their teeth on their own kind of experience, put their stamp on it, and if it goes well, that could be like Bluepoint becomes the team that now has Metal Gear Solid. They work with Kojima, they work with, for me, like if I was in charge of Sony, I said this before, I would go to Konami, give them the bag, take all their franchises and like do a co-op show and make Bluepoint new Konami. Like give them Castlevania, give them Metal Gear, give them Zone of the Enders, give them Suikoden, give them all the shit they want, and be like, you are new Konami for us now. We're gonna pay these pachinko lads their cut, but you
I was
make
gonna
their
say
games.
you can still make your pachinko games.
Yeah, you go and make your pachinko things. We'll give you the license fee for these franchises, but Bluepoint is now lead developer on all of them.
I fucking can't wait for that Castlevania episode, lads. Oh my god. Oh my god.
But yeah.
God,
Yeah, go on.
I was just gonna say I'm just thinking back to a couple years ago with all the rumors about the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, and that was fucking killer though. Like that none of that happened, and like it was, I don't know. Konami is just
trolls at this point.
It's so disappointing because all of those games are so fucking cool, and like today, like making a Castlevania game today would be.
They said there. Well, I mean, there was news stories out there saying that they are actively working on games in those franchises. Yeah, like Castlevania is coming back. They said Metal Gear is not done.
What happens when you're not in media? You just don't look at the news anymore. You miss it all.
And that's what like that is why my hope is that Sony rolled up and were like, you are. Outside, I mean, Castlevania is more closely synonymous to PlayStation in my mind, but it is a Nintendo franchise was for the longest time.
Oh, yeah.
But like I feel like Sony is in the best position to be like, hey, it's us, we want all your franchises and we'll give you the massive amounts of money that we'll make, or we'll give you a small cut of it. So fingers crossed. Yeah. So that should answer thoroughly the question from Batman, and that should bring to a close our discussion on Metal Gear Solid Tactical Espionage Action.
Good game.
It's finally done.
Great game.
Big game ticked off there.
Yeah.
So we're gonna skulk on over to our weekly recommendations.
If I may make a request, can we do this pretty quickly? Because I have to pee so bad.
Yes, okay. Zach, make your recommendation.
My recommendation this week, perhaps you've heard of a little game. I've got a lot of folks from my my stream in here this week, but I'm talking about Returnal. So I just finished Returnal over on my stream, and this was a game that I had zero interest in playing when it came out. Like, it was a game that I was like, I don't care about that. That doesn't look good to me, and I'm not into, procedurally generated games typically, or roguelikes. This game is fucking amazing. Like, you want to talk about like an impactful story. You want to talk about just Jake, especially. I think you would really love Returnal. Like, this game is,
I need to finish it.
it's fucking incredible. I didn't know if you'd played it or not, but like, man, it does some shit in the middle of this game that just like, you talk about those moments in Metal Gear. Like, I literally stood up and was like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, it's so good. It's so hard. It's so fun. Like, I have retroactively gone back and retconned my game of the year list to put this at number 1 over Metroid, because
Damn.
it's a fucking amazing game, and like a game that I will return to over and over and over again. Very thematic as well.
Yeah,
to this
Returnal
game.
too.
Yeah, I'll Returnal to it often, but yeah, that's my recommendation. If you have a PlayStation 5, this game is hands down the best reason to own a PS5 for sure.
Wow.
Man. Lucy, your recommendation?
Yellow Jackets. I talked about this on the
God damn it.
podcast. Whoa. I talked about this on the podcast. But basically, get a Showtime trial just for a week. Blast through all 10 episodes. That's what I did. Like, literally, I watched the finale and then I just canceled my Showtime. $11 a month. I'm not paying all that.
There's nothing else on there.
I can watch that and Dexter as quick as I can.
Dexter.
And then...
But it's basically, Lost meets Lord of the Flies. That is a very reductive way of describing it, but it's the easiest kind of quick elevator pitch. The core cast is this women's football soccer team. I say women's, they're still in high school, and it's about like the friendships, the betrayals, and the fact that this event, like they survive a plane crash and have to survive in the wilderness for over a year, how it messes them up so much. It's fantastic. Like, Christina Ricci, I'm terrified of her. Her character is incredible. Honestly, it's one of the best things I've seen in years. Like, it makes me feel like Lost made me feel. Like, at the end of every episode, I was texting friend of the show, Andrew Goldfarb. I was texting Luce O'Brien and Chastity Vicentio. Like, we were just like fan theories, subreddits. Like, couldn't wait till the next episode. It's fantastic. So please enjoy.
Is Jake? Just the show's done, right? Like, or
yeah, season
10
one
episodes.
is
Season
one is done. Yeah.
Well, let me tell you about three white men who started a podcast. It's the Always Sunny podcast. It is with.
Listen to that.
It's so good. They basically go through their original episodes. I think they're going to try to go through the entire series, but they do 30-minute podcasts that pair with the episodes. So if it's been a while since you've watched Sunny, if you've never watched Sunny, especially that first season, I would highly recommend watching that with their context. Because some of those episodes have not aged well.
I was getting
them.
Season 1 in
I have
particular.
tried many times.
Yeah. I mean, like,
season 1, episode 1 is straight up bad.
Bad. Yeah.
I would skip season 1 altogether. I mean, like, when Danny DeVito shows up is really when it kind of maybe not even hits his stride that early, but anyway, to go back to the podcast, it's basically Charlie Day, Rob McElhenney, and Glenn Howerton. They do 30-minute episodes where they just kind of talk about what they were thinking, what the production was like for these earlier episodes, which is super fascinating because it was super guerrilla style. In a sense, not guerrilla style in that they'd go to random places and film when they weren't allowed to, but they just didn't have resources or anything.
No budget.
But it's also just those three have such great chemistry. They get on tangents. Like, the most recent episode is just Rob McElhenney talking about how he almost fought a dude at In-N-Out because he tried to cut him off and his kids were in the car. And just the banter that those three have is so good. If you like Sunny, I highly recommend it. If you're curious about getting into Sunny and you really want to start from season 1, definitely listen to those podcasts before or after you watch the episode, just for some context.
What's it called? The podcast?
It's Always Sunny podcast.
Oh, okay, cool.
Nice. My recommendation is a documentary on YouTube from one Super Eye Patch Wolf, who is a friend of ours and we've done work with, but he's a YouTube essayist, and he's done this amazing video that I watched and have been thinking about a lot since. And it's the what the fandom has done, what the internet did to Garfield. It's just looking at the origins of Garfield and how that character has evolved over time, and the very, very strange places that it has gone as a result of fans getting a hold of him and kind of just transforming things. And it is genuinely fascinating, horrifying, disturbing, hilarious. It's about an hour and a bit long, so that's why it's just like straight up a recommendation for me, because it's like you're sitting down to watch a movie basically. And Super Eye Patch Wolf is in it. He does little sketches and does like a really deep dive analysis of. He's great at looking into fandoms. And yeah, it is well worth checking out. There's bits where he looks at Sonic and Simpsons and that kind of stuff. And yeah, highly recommend it. Informative, entertaining, and at times disturbing. Yeah, and that's our recommendation. So next episode is going to be happening on January 30th, and it is The Exorcist. We're going to be watching and then coming back to talk about this iconic, beloved horror movie classic, The Exorcist, which is going to be really. Whose list does this come from? It's from Jake's.
Film student Jake's.
Film student Jake's.
With shame.
List. And you will be able to check that, of course, out here on twitch.tv/kind of funny. Oh my god!
Oh boy! Oh Jesus!
Can you tell how much time I've said twitch.tv/kind of funny? Yes.
It's kind of funny games, though, isn't it?
I know, it's just my habit. I think I'm technically a kind of funny employee now. Twitch.tv/lads on tour crew. That you can find us on Twitter at the same, and we're also on YouTube and Spotify and any other places that you can get content from us. We're gonna end this stream by doing a raid. Before we do that, while Zach gets ready, do quick outros. I'm streaming 3 times a week on twitch.tv/TomorH. Jake, where you at?
Twitch.tv/Jacob Deck. I normally stream Smash every Monday, but tomorrow I probably won't because I streamed Smash 3.5 hours yesterday.
Lucy?
I'm on Twitter at Lucy James Games. I'm on Twitch. I'm /Lucy James Games. I stream Tuesdays and Thursdays 6 p.m. PT. I'm going to be doing Metal Gear Solid 2. It's been great, like doing the Metal Gear Solid journey with so many folks, and like a lot of them in the chat today. So thank you. And if you want to continue, see you Tuesday.
Zach needs to pee.
Oh my god, please.
All right, let's wrap it up there. Zach's Zacharias D on Twitch.
I'm Zacharias D on Twitch. I'm Zacharias D on Twitter. I stream Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturday mornings. Tuesday, Thursday evenings, and Saturday mornings. And I'm about to start the God of War hard mode challenge now that game is on PC. I don't know who we're raiding. We don't really follow a ton of people on Twitch, Tam. So if you want to let me know,
Miranda Sanchez.
We're gonna raid Miranda Sanchez. Okay.
Yeah, have it grows.
Zach's about to start another stream once he.
Yeah, Zach is about to autocon himself in a locker. All right, everyone, stick around and watch Miranda, and then we'll go from there.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. Oh. Mine's got to be.
She is the sweetest, isn't she?
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. That was a fun episode.
It was really
That was
fun.
a good one, yeah.
I'm also gonna peep.
Yeah,
I might do the same.
I might do the same.
Oh,
That was cruel.
what was?
That was cruel. Just fucking kept going. I legitimately thought I was gonna piss my pants. Like for like the last 10 minutes, I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna piss my pants. Like
that would have been good content.
certainly would have been
Yeah.
something.
That would have been a good TikTok clip.